What type of
Hold
class
on.
are you, Sasha?
I gotta adjust your levels because as usual they're
Is it
different than
than what it was
last
before?
time.
Well, okay. How's this?
Now I'm gonna turn you up and you're gonna be super close and then. All right, perfect, perfect, perfect. Speak again.
I am a type of class.
Walrus.
Am I a type of
Um.
class?
Um. Well, I mean, isn't everything except
No.
for all of the classes?
Not everything's are types of classes. Types of classes are mostly fictional. They're not particulars, and
You cut out there. What'd you say?
most things are not types of classes. I mean, there are an infinite types. There are infinite types of classes, but
So,
they are
I
arguably
didn't
non-existent.
check. I didn't. I might have missed the sentence where he explicitly defined classes. I just heard it in context over and over, and kind of used it. I figured I kind of assumed or inferred its meaning, but I can go back to that section and grab, or if you want to define it for me, so we can be clear
Well, so
moving
I
forward.
have kind of an implicit definition of a class, but classes are definitely different from types. Um,
Classes are different from types.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, types are types of classes, and uh, distinguished by you can distinguish one type from another by distinguishing the type of elements in the class that is in that type. At least that's what I think, which has to do with how high up in the nested class hierarchy are you? Is mostly what he talks about.
When I was thinking about it regarding to how he was using it and just general understanding of how the word is usually used, right? It's a classification of something, right? But it's can be made up of a group of classifications, um, or a group of things. But I didn't think about it beyond that for I didn't think it was important, but I figured we'd ground it out.
uh, so good thing I have my little doodly screen here.
Handy dandy notebook.
Yeah, so the first type. Are you looking at my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Are classes that just have particulars in them. For example, A, B, C, and then second. And so this itself is a class, A, B, C, but it's of the first type, and it's the same type of E, F, G. And so then we get, okay. And then second type, I know I'm really good at this, is stuff like,
You're actually not. This is awful. Clearly, you don't understand. No.
is stuff that has elements that are classes that have elements that are particulars.
Yeah, it can be recursive or have
A, B,
subclasses
F,
in them.
G, yeah.
Yep.
Uh, so this and this here are classes of the same type. Um, and uh, can I do that? Oh yeah, and then but then like this class and this class are not the same type.
Makes sense. So type would be the sub of class.
Type would be the sub.
Type is a sub element of class.
So I mean I'm accepting a sub.
I'm using language in the real world, not from the book, right?
Okay, what do you mean? So a sub element to me sounds like either you're talking about like a sub
is
element.
within. You're thinking too deeply. So just types are contained in classes, is what I should have said.
They can be. That's a higher order
Don't you're
type
being
though.
pedantic, you fuck. You just said
I'm not being
there here
pedantic.
are types and there's brackets and the bracket, bracket defines the class. It's a group of types. Did I reiterate it right?
It's just a like it's a way of organizing
Doesn't hold on.
classes.
What I meant hold on sorry to as in uh
Are you looking something up?
to my question. No. Hold on as in addressing the question, right? So speaking to my question,
Okay.
are types made up inside of classes?
No.
Okay. Maybe I misunderstood your explanation and it's on me. Where am I missing, do you think?
Um, so like classes of a second type are classes whose elements are classes, and those classes are particulars.
Oh, okay. I was swapping particulars and types. That's my fault. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
So
this
where are
a
types?
yeah a here is the particular. So classes of the first
Okay.
type are classes whose elements
So
are particulars. Yeah.
gotcha. So I could sub everything I said with particulars instead of types. Okay.
Yeah. So you can kind of think of it like, God. Okay. Um, we're gonna.
No, I think I follow. I think I was following. I was just using the wrong
Yeah, we have
words
a
or wrong language.
class of particular is the first type, and this is a of class of particular is the second type, and then like third type, say class of class of particular.
One thing to keep in mind, right? I may have said this before. I do not retain a lot of his verbiage. I try to
Okay.
stick to the concepts.
Yeah.
I don't actually. I don't even try to. It's just like mentally when he says particular. I know because I think we talked about this last time. But a lot of times when he's using words like particulars and things like that, I may remember it locally, right? But the minute I'm out of that section, the difference between the particulars or the what was another one? He's used a number of different concepts, right? That he has a particular name for, but they don't map to anything for me.
Mhm.
So when we use them, I'll try
Sure.
my best to just kind of I stick to the inference of the concept, right? And the class being just almost like the word classification, right? A classification of sub items that he
Yeah.
is referring to,
And
and I understood it as such, as he went through the.
so yeah. So I kind of had to implicitly make it so. There's a thing in logic or math that's called a set, which is in
Yeah,
a lot
set
of
theory. I went into Frege and set
yeah.
theory all
So
today.
yeah, so which is a lot. It's very similar to a class, and I can only kind of. I'm basically just making up what I think is the difference between a class and a set, which is kind of hinted at, I think, in what Russell's talking about, is that a class is a set whose elements can be meaningfully compared or identified. So if
Well, I
you're
would say it probably aligns exactly with like a dictionary or what we would think of in code, right? A set is it's got a semicolon, right, or a colon, I think, and then a definite definer, and then a value, right? Whereas a class can have a single set of values or a set within it, right? Or in a set being, in that case, right, an object with a value and a variable for the name. Does that make sense?
I think so. Um, I guess I
And
want to
I'll
be able
share
to.
my screen so I have I can do the visual thing also because it's how I talk. But go ahead.
Um, so yeah, okay, okay. So the thing about for example, like this. Okay, so a set can be just any collection of things, like the number one or my horse. Um, my horse. Or, 6 donuts can be this. We can call this a set, but what I want to say is it's not not a class.
Well, that's not meaningful whatsoever. Respectfully.
Yeah. So I only mean to say that it's not a class because we can't really compare. Like I can't say. I mean, you can say my horse is one, but you can't talk about these two being identical or not identical, and Russell says that something like this is nonsense to be able to say that they're the same thing or not the same thing. Um, which is why I'm thinking a class is a set of things whose items can be meaningfully identified or compared or related. So, for example, like in I guess another example would be so like this here is a class C D. This is a class. Uh, this here is a class A B C D is a class, but this here would not be a class because um, in the way that he's talking about it, we can't. It doesn't make any sense for us to compare or identify or not identify uh, this element with this element.
Wait. Um, because they're not congruent or symmetrical or however you'd want to put that.
Um, Symmetrical in what sense?
So, insofar as the way you're describing, so in a class, there has to be some sort of um, derivative or uh, describer or right that is uniform across the class. And even if it's got a that subclass is two characters, two letters, A, B, C, D, right? The one above, the proper class. But that it's congruent. It's symmetrical, right? It's not the third one's not going to contain three letters, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you can see in the not a class, right? Similar to a set, well, we can set anything, right? It can be one, my horse, and not, I don't even have to identify the fact that why I put them together, right?
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a group, but there is no congruency between them other than the fact that they are grouped.
Yeah. Yep. You got it. So like in this class, you have this is a particular, and in this class you have this is a first order.
Yeah, well, here, look at my,
This is a
this is
class. This is a
exactly how I,
class. Then you have a class and a particular and a particular.
the
Uh,
way I thought about it was
Let me pop
a
this out.
class may be, just like in, um, in coding, right? A set can have right or in this case like an object, so self dot fucking name, Sasha, right? Self dot horse, right? Horse height, right? It doesn't even have to be um uh is 12 inches, right? They're just they're but the only reason they're grouped together is they may be a part of class person, right, or whatever, right? But that class person is going to be congruent every time. I mean, this can be John. John can have a 6 inch because he's not as long as my foresight, or whatever, right? Like, but that class is going to remain like a. You get the idea. We've
Yeah. I guess I
beat
just
this
want to be
dead.
careful that we're not conflating. code classes from Russell classes.
Yeah. I'm just again the way I describe things, I and understand them. We have differing ways of doing that.
Well, sure, but in the Russell world, it is meaningful to distinguish between types and classes. So it.
Well, so okay. Let me expand on that.
Mm-hmm.
When I try to map onto an analogy, your asshole clenches, right?
Okay. Well, it's mostly
And
it only clenches because the
I
same
know because you
sounds
think
come
I'm
out.
saying they're the
I
same,
don't think
right?
that you're saying the
And
same sound. I'm just. It could start. It could start. It starts.
there could be a snowball of issues that
Yeah.
comes with the
There's
differences.
a.
I understand, right?
Yeah.
I understand that but I'm never saying they're the same when I'm making that analogy. I'm just trying to, hey, do I have the general concept
Yeah.
down?
Yeah.
Just like how I don't remember, I rarely remember the name of something. I just understand the concept
Mm-hmm.
and then go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I would say the yin and the yang of our conversation, right? Is you help map onto, um, the literal sense of the meaning or the definition and the word itself,
Mm-hmm.
whereas I'm going for that general,
Mm-hmm.
and and sometimes I can get frustrated, but I've learned to try and
Okay. Well, I'll
slow
try to
down.
be more
No, you're not doing anything wrong. It's just different way of going about things. So now that we have classes, um hmm, we have classes down. We've reminded
I think so.
me of
Yep. Yep.
particulars, um, and sets, which is more outside. It's part of this conversation, but not as aligned, right? That's just another part of the broader conversation. Um, where do we want to take this? Because this is going to be a good one.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about the beginning or his like clarification of existence, where when he talks about what was it, the existence of a thing and the existence and when a proposition is possible, because he wants to talk about um, and that was really the first. I guess it might have been the second paragraph actually, but no, it was I think it was the first page, second paragraph. Yeah, the first point I wish to clear up is this: I do not mean to say that when one says a thing exists, one means the same as when saying that it is possible. Because okay, so he said like to say that something exists, like to say a man exists, is just to say that X is a man and it is possible that it is true, which means to say that there is some value of X that makes the functional proposition true. Um, which I guess is just kind of, and then whereas in the normal sense, saying something's possible is saying, well, either it could be or it could not be, or it's not, but it will be. Yeah.
Yep. Um, I'm excited because later I had a bit of a revelation as far as, or a personally novel take on existence, in this specific concept
Okay.
of idealism and the kind of the theoretical existence versus realist version of existence. But before we get to that, um, I think you were just kind of laying that out. You didn't have a question or concern with that section, right?
Not really. I could maybe rant about it, but it's not. I don't. I
Yeah,
don't.
hit me with what you get. Your
It no.
thoughts.
It'd just be some nonsense. I don't know where it would go.
It's so great. The just using it's just not like nonsense just has a completely new meaning. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're just speaking nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Like yes.
I'm saying things to which there is no symbolized for my symbol of what I'm saying.
There's sounds coming from your face, and that's about where it ends.
They don't symbolize anything. Yeah. I want to hear about your idea, Sasha.
All right, let's jump to it. So, um, my idea is that based on my prop logic of this, existence is only when something is perceived, and it like the tree fall in the forest idea. And I can't remember. I will get into it, but whether I'm playing like devil's advocate or it's a true belief, I'm not sure yet. But because I'm always, yeah, of course the tree's fucking there. If I go there, if somebody tells me the tree's there and it was true, and then have never seen it, but I go and see it, it was always there. But based on the prop logic, I went down, and I'll walk you through it if you'd like now, or you can guess about it. But I I would say based on the conclusion, it necessarily would follow that that thing does not exist until until I perceive it.
Uh huh.
I'm sure that's completely not or unnovel in the world, or even we've probably discussed it.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Um,
it mostly matters on what bearing it has with RESTful is what I'm gonna care about. So I'm ready.
yeah, so when he talked about phantoms, images, thoughts, imagination, right? And of course, phantoms is I think is thesaurus for or synonym. Jesus, did I say it's a thesaurus? Phantoms are a thesaurus for imagination. Um, so here it is here, and you can see I kind of stop. So I was taking notes, and then like I was like, "Fuck!" I stopped. Okay, um, so the fact. First, I just Googled existence, right? To when he talks about um, images don't do exist, right? In only in our mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he starts to talk about and I started to think about what he talks about, like things unknown to us, right? So the total amount of men, or back to that conversation around the planet, how many total men are in the room, versus things to our senses. But things we don't know don't exist. If we don't know something is in the world, then we don't speak of its existence. So no one experiences it. So the when it talks about the objective um, existence being the objective description of something in our world, if that is existence, then things only exist if we experience it, because um, because how can we speak objectively about something that we've not experienced?
Okay. So you're okay.
And I mean experience not at like the roller coaster ride, but any of our senses, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Could
Yeah. Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Um. Hmm. That it is lively. Well, lively. Currently. Uh. In like we're currently. It is a current particular to us, or to. Well, either I guess to my mind or to a mind. Um. So I guess do you think this is what Russell is thinking, or he's not like? Are you agreeing with Russell or disagreeing with him?
So he talks about images in our mind that exist, and it followed from prime number. So this is you can see the line in my graph here where where I branched off my notes to have that kind of inner thought. Let me pick up where. So he was talking about, I believe it was the numbers. Um, yeah. So going back to the numbers here. So we talked about theology. And then he talked about, oh yeah, yeah. So, Orthodox metaphysics, whatever is real is not in time. That to be in time is to be more or less unreal. That
Yeah.
what really exists is not in time at all. So when
Mhm.
you say even a prime number exists, you do not mean that the number two is in time, but that it is even a prime number. Now, if we were talking about when he talks about you close your eyes, you imagine something, that thing, it only exists to the subject. So it doesn't exist to anybody else because they're not experiencing it.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. Okay. And also another.
Now, I
Well.
could tell you I had a dream, right?
Right.
And I can write it in a book, but nobody until someone else has that exact same dream, hypothetically, it doesn't exist to them. That's what it was off the back of. So
Right.
in the prop logic of his line of thought of his the phantoms and imaginations, right? Existence then only lies in the subject.
Well, so there was one thing that he does mention about the difference between quote unquote, physical particulars and imaginations, that it can go arguably in either direction, whether it's subjective or objective, which is that physical particulars fit into a system of other particulars, whereas imaginations can do whatever you want it to do. So, like, he had an example of, like, you can imagine a heavy oak table, and in your mind, you could just flick it and, throw it out the window. But in real life, like, it fits in with other certain particulars, which is that, namely, if you try to flick it, it's not going to go out the window. Um, and if you, I don't know, just there's some other stuff, and then also that it also fits in, like, if I reach out and try to touch it, I'm feeling it, and now there's a in the system of physical particulars, we're now relating the image with the touch, but in your imagination, you can't do something with your body and have that connected with the particular that's in your mind.
Well, I would say that that's not um, consistent, meaning or just insofar as the word existence, right? The way he's defining it now, uh, because if otherwise, we would say, well, I've been told that someone else is imagining something, so that imagination exists.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he would say, I believe he would say that that imagination doesn't exist to the other people. It would only exist to that subject.
Uh,
Maybe he would say the other side. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he would say that other people would say it exists in someone else's imagination, or someone else is having. There exists a phantom in someone else's mind right now
I
because they
mean,
told me.
yeah. So I think you can, at the very least. Well, first off, my first hint I want to go with a hint. Well, a clue. I guess I don't want to make it sound like I know the answer, but something to go
But
about is
you
that
do.
I don't know the answer. I'm just gonna make an argument here. Which is that you can talk about the imagination that the other person has, um, and like uh, so you can. It is referential to a degree. Now you don't experience it the same way, and it's not present to you exactly. But I can, and it does end up in a type of, uh, I guess, fact or proposition. I don't know which. That is of a higher order in the sense that, like, I believe that you imagined a girl with big tits, like, as opposed to I don't just imagine a girl with big tits. I believe that you imagined a girl with big tits. Um, now, and when
And
you
he does kind of denote that, like that he kind of even says, and there were a lot of caveats in that, because even he, the mathematician, is kind of going, guys, there's like, imagine, he literally said, like, let's just not even worry about images because in photos, because that's like a can of worms, and I don't want to touch it right now, because I think he knows he has an incomplete theorem.
I don't know.
Uh,
I think that to a degree. I also think that there's something he wants to get to and he doesn't have time for it. Um, which I think what he really wanted to get to was the Russell's paradox, which is very historically relevant, especially at the time, for a lot of reasons. So this is, in a lot of ways, actually, there's like like the middle of this chapter we read is probably like one of the most important things Russell ever wrote, or
yeah, I
thought about.
watched 2 hours of Bolvec or whatever, Daniel
Bonavec.
Boljevic
Yep.
on Frege and then before that was the kind of the class of, if a class of all classes would it be a member of itself, is the underlying
Yeah.
paradox, right?
Yeah, and the
The
relevance.
barber who shaves
Yes,
people who don't shave, does he shave himself? um
and the I
and then
guess
the person who lies.
yes. So well, okay. So the relevance of I guess I just want to say some relevant historical relevance to
Hit me.
the Russell paradox of set theory, which I don't really know all the connecting tissues of these thoughts, but presumably around the 19th century, they was trying to find out the, like, basically how to understand calculus, because clearly it worked, but they just wanted to figure out if there's anything wrong with it, and they were trying to you know ground calculus and ultimate mathematics. And I guess the way that they were doing that was set theory, which they didn't know at the time was called naive set theory. It was naive set theory because it was prone to Russell's paradox, which then meant that the whole system of mathematics they were trying to ground calculus in was paradoxical or contradictory, which means it's presumably wrong then. And so then he both came up with the problem and then also provided us a solution to it, which was his types. The types. Type. Yeah, that's it. Unless we want to talk about what the solution is. Okay.
What Bonavat kind of said, just kind of back to my big thesis on his book is the mathematics surrounding in logic is a rough way to go about the world, right? The propositional logic and not I don't know if he was talking about propositional logic, but the proposition, sorry, for classes of classes and the member of itself is just it's a flawed premise. So you would just make a quick adjustment to the way you're going about the problem, and I'd have to pull the exact quote on how he solved for it. But it's just back to the concept that using this in a mathematic if A then B sense really breeds problems when trying to think about in this way he thinks about classes.
Mm-hmm.
Removing the ability to abstract. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh well. I mean, I was just gonna say the way that he got around that Russell got around it was excuse me, was kind of like what the thing about different was that the Russell's paradox ignored different types of classes, which is it treated all classes as the same type, or it mostly I don't know if it did ignore, but if you don't want to allow for different types of classes and saying that you can't compare class elements that are of a different class, or elements.
Wait, does he solve for the types thing in what we just read, or was that added?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So which is that? So like you say you just have some set like fucking M. That is the whatever set of sets, or we'll just say the class of classes that do not contain themselves.
Should be a song.
Yeah. Not contain themselves. The problem is that his answer to it is that and then because then you have to go like, is M in this set? If it is, then it's not, and if it's not, then it is. I guess what he wants to say is it doesn't make any sense to put a class of order n in a class of order. I don't want to use M because I just used it up there. Of order in order X. Where I guess n is not equal to God, what is this? X minus 1. Right, so say like an example of like C, the first order class is like this, right? You get A and B, whoop-de-doo. And then your C of 2 is something like this. Oh God. A, B. Which you could say is just this. C to 1. And we're saying that C1 is an element of C2. But anything other than that where these numbers. So he's saying that this doesn't make sense. Bad. But where.
Boo.
Yeah, but where n is equal to x plus 1 or x minus 1, this is good. So like if you try to so say then we had so we're going to talk about this m here, so we're just going to say m is equal to fucking c5, which looks like a b. C5. So let's hope I get this right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A, B, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. And then if you try to put, C5 into a C2, you would try to be doing something like a C2 is equal to, just a normal fucking A, B. Oh god, that looks like a little alpha thing. And then you'd have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Which doesn't make sense. Well, at least in his system, we want to say that it doesn't make any sense to compare these two things. So, so that's bad. Yeah. So if you're going to talk about M is the class of all classes that do not contain themselves, you need to, I guess, qualify this one, or at least one of them, is the class of all like C1 classes that do not contain themselves. Which I don't know if that actually is a. So like his example of a thing was like, we'll call this, sure, X is all not pencils. And I guess actually it doesn't even make sense to talk about a set that contains itself. So I don't even think we need to go into this. Oh god. So yeah, so if we have X is not all pencils that are particulars. Not all all not pencil particulars. All not pencil and this is really terrible grammar. Particulars. So you can have it,
put a plus.
all not
pencils plus particulars.
Well, it's a way of saying particulars.
Or minus reverse. Yeah. Or never mind. Continue. Sorry.
Let me try this. All.
Bro, you can just copy paste swap them. No. All particulars that are not. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're doing.
Particulars that are. I'm gonna buy one of these pen things soon. Not pencils.
Should try a keyboard.
Yeah, well, I don't. You don't get to make different shapes of these things then. Okay, so then, that includes something like my mouse and my butthole. But I'll just say my butt because I don't want to do that. Type that all out. ...
Whoa, PC Johnny.
Yeah, now we have to go. Well, is fucking X a member of X? And we have to say that doesn't. Well, we have to say that doesn't make any sense because there's no brackets here. These all just directly name things. They are particulars. Well, they're symbols for particulars if you want to be annoying about this. So it doesn't make any sense. Bad. I don't know. So it doesn't even make sense to have a notion of any set that contains itself or not.
Say that again.
So it doesn't make sense to talk about sets that contain themselves or not. Um,
Well, it's the or not. That's the problem, right?
yeah, yeah.
Because you could. Well, hold on. No, um, that's not right. Because a class that contain classes,
So you can have a class that contains classes. So we could have Y.
or a class that contains strictly a class of itself would not be
Yeah, that
valuable,
doesn't make
right?
any sense in this.
Y equals.
Yeah, that's bad.
Well,
Bad.
yeah, bad. Boo.
Boo, we don't like that.
Boo.
And
Stupid.
in a lot of ways, it kind like you can talk about. I mean, until you start.
It's the same thing as talking about, the example of the if we were to think about the world without time, or to look in the from a third party. You're talking about something so far out of it's not. I mean, you can talk about it, but it's nonsense. Right, back to that.
Yeah, well, so he wants to try to say that it's nonsense. The interesting thing is, I think, is as long as you're in the this purely abstract or symbolic world where you're talking about y's and squiggly shit and equal signs, it
Well, we can
feels
speak nonsense in this world, right?
it,
Oh,
it seems rather arbitrary. I mean, it seems like you could just say that it's just convenient to be able to say that we're just gonna say that it doesn't make any sense to have sets of sets that are themselves like sets that have elements that are itself. Um, and I think really the only the actually only argument for why we would want to support that type of axiom comes from making normal day language clear. I mean, the other argument for it is that hey, it solves this paradox. If we just assume this is true, then we don't have a paradox, which is cool.
right.
Which is rather
Yeah.
pragmatic,
It's
you know, kind of like
um.
kind of like it's like in a way, at least until you start looking at other stuff, it's kind of like that. There's this early whatever in like the 50s or something. There was some advanced medicine called radium that was really help pain and stuff, and it felt and when you took it, you're like, oh, this is awesome. Like I feel good. My back pain's gone. I have energy. Blah blah blah. Until 3 years goes by and your jaw falls off because it actually turns out that you were taking radiation medicine that had radiation in it.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess either it just will happen to be that our jaw doesn't fall off when we're thinking like Russell, or which it's just kind of like, oh, it just hasn't failed yet. Or we can try to have an argument that goes to show that there really is a good reason to suppose this, other than it just avoids the paradox. Um,
I think there are cases where obviously, um, there are exceptions. There are exceptions in language without a doubt. I mean, if we would just look at dialects, right, that kind of proves that. But beyond that, um, there are times I can tell where there are errors or flaws, and he understands flaws in his logic, and I've kind of enumerated why. But then he will put a few caveats in there where it's like, well, this really feels dirty because I feel like we're doing this to fit a square peg in a circle hole. But he's also going through a lecture. Keep in mind, he's just kind of going through his ideas and how he's
mm,
formulated them, um, to his best knowledge, and he's a pioneer in the topic. So it's not like I'm calling him an idiot, right? Obviously, but the only way he can get to his end. Well, he's it's like a theoretical physicist, right? He doesn't know about dark matter. He's the first one. He sees this blip on his radar, so he's drawing and making as many. He, he's drawing and putting things together to fit into the world, and he can't, like the image thing. He can't spend all day on each individual one, and to get to the end, he needs something in place of dark matter to explain the phenomenon around particulars or what have you, to kind of make the analogy complete. Um, but I think I don't know if it's because he's teaching a class and This is so novel that I feel like he is the kind of humble person who would say, "Hey, I don't think I have this perfectly solved, but here's what I know. So here's what I think so far, and describe that this is an inference instead of stating it as this is how it is." But obviously he's teaching a class, and there are probably upsides to not saying that.
Yeah, well, I think you would agree. Like, I think if you do press him, like, he will go, you know, yeah, there could be problems with, like, this is difficult. This is a difficult topic. Not that you don't understand, but it's that I also don't understand this, and I'm still working it out. But I guess at the very least, he would. I think he would want, like, want to make sure that you
And you
grasp.
wouldn't say that in a persuasive essay, right? Which is kind of what he's got here.
Yeah,
Is here's
yeah,
my concept.
because it seems to
You
be
wouldn't want
doing
to
a
go.
whole
I'm
lot
I'm
of
not
work.
too sure. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
doing a
so
lot of heavy lifting in his concepts.
yes,
Sorry,
it
go
is
ahead.
doing a whole lot of work that previous theories were not able to work with. Because, like, really, until we got to Frege, we just had fucking reference theory of meaning, which was retarded. Well, I don't know if I want to say it was retarded, but we had Frege's sense of, or we had, reference theory of meaning, which is that things just mean what their referent is. Uh, which is not, which is, just to say that, like, the biggest mountain peak at the border of Tanzania, or is it Tanzania? Yeah, Tanzania and Kenya. Just saying that language expression points to a thing, and you just, oh, it's Mount Kilimanjaro. Well, you have these two things, but really they do end up meaning slightly different things. Well, slightly different things. They have a different way of grasping it. The I guess the famous example that Frege uses is the morning star and the evening star, which I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes.
Yeah, Bonavac brought that up.
I learned about, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
where they're both actually the same thing, but they really mean very different things. We didn't actually know that they were the same star until, like, I
In
don't
fact, I
know.
think that's where I stopped. So I went through the two and a half of his videos, and here on my second screen, I think he goes right after
Careful of the distinguished too.
sense and reference.
Uh huh.
Uh, and he does a whole section on Batman and Bruce Wayne, and I was like, John would love this.
Hell yeah, dude.
And then and so well, maybe we'll watch that if we get time. But then he goes in here and he talks more about the what you just said, right? Fuck, what did you just say?
The morning star and the evening star.
Morning Star, Evening Star, yeah.
And then I guess then then besides what Frege did, Russell then pointed out some issues with what Frege did, and
Careful.
he's trying to show a solution to what the problem is. And then I'll see once it. I think when he talks, I think because I've heard things about. I never read chapter 8 in here.
Example, go back to your causation.
I never read excursus into metaphysics, where I'm hoping he's going to talk about what people are. Because, like, I think what he's going to say is that people are a type of classes. Hold up a sec. Oh, hello. Okay, sorry about that.
When you just get there?
Yes, she didn't tell. Oh, I guess she might have texted me. I didn't really look. Oh, she did. Yeah. Okay.
Lying.
Yeah, because I think the only particulars, so Russell's going to talk about really the only things that you can name, and in a sense, the only things that exist fundamentally are supposed to be things you can point to. So when you say something about, like, Courtney was
Hi,
at work
Sasha.
today.
Hi, Courtney.
She can't hear you, but
Way to go, John.
yeah, well, otherwise there would be a feedback loop on this mic. Oh yeah, so Courtney worked today, right? But I didn't see that. I mean, I guess I could have seen that, but I didn't. We talked about it, but that was a while ago. It's not right here. So in some way, it's gonna be. So there was a particular then that was the instance of us having a conversation, and now we're here, and I am relating these two things, but that's not one particular. That's actually we're putting those two particular things in a class, and we're gonna end up more or less saying that the class is the person is really the class, or really the class symbolizes the thing that is the person, and that's how we can talk about them. But it's a very different way of existing than, say, like right now the color of this book is gray. Yeah, and I'm hoping that's what he gets into this last chapter. Yep.
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of complete this and as far as big book, do we want as far as books on this, do we want to diverge after this from language, or do we want to do like Frege, or what are you thinking?
Well, you want to do Kant. I'm happy doing the Prolegomena. I think that'd be very good.
Yep, that's right.
I am interested to come back to Russell insofar as I want to look at his
later works.
panpsychism.
Oh, he goes into psychology.
No, not psychology, but panpsychism, which is, well, he has a certain type of panpsychism, which is the theory that all things either are or have some aspect of mind.
Fucking what?
Yeah. So it's a certain type of it's called like
oh, your boy.
yeah. It's some type of I forget what it's called. It's some type of monism. It's a what do they call it? Oh God, not comparable, compromising monism. No, allowing. What is the word for it? Oh, neutral monism. That's a way of that's one way of people have talked about it. Yeah, but Russell has his own type of monism.
It's not in itself, it's not a theory of mind per se, because it's not in general given account of the precise nature of mind or how it relates to the material thing. Rather, it is a meta theory. It is a theory about theories, a framework which says, however mind is to be conceived, it applies in some sense to all things. What a fucking sentence. However mind is to be conceived. Lost me.
Yeah, so that's what I'll be interested in looking at.
Dualism.
If Matt starts getting interested again, I think it would be good to look at
yeah, he would love
host
this.
role, so that we can kind of go in the direction that I think he wants to go in, or he has explicitly expressed interest in going in that direction.
I think so we talked about that. I think, I mean, do you have, I think that we have, there is no way to say one way or the other of,
I'm going to stop this now, by the way. I mean, I think it's going to be a couple months before Matt comes back, but I'm just going to go and stop this. Bye, Internet.